You're listening to The Critical Thought, where we challenge our listeners to use critical thinking when examining the teachings of Jehovah's Witnesses.
I'd like to welcome everybody this evening. My name is JT, and this is
Lady C.
Our guest with us this evening is Lady C. Will introduce to you
Shakeem Holmes. And we want to thank you so much for being on the program.
Not a problem. My pleasure.
Yes. Shakeem, he is one of the people that I've talked about in previous, discussions that we've had about how individuals get involved with this religion coming in on their own as a teenager. So Shakeem is going to share his story and how he became one of Jehovah's Witnesses through one of his classmates.
All right.
So Shakeem, you want to go ahead and start off and let us know how your process of indoctrination started with the Jehovah's Witnesses?
Yes, definitely. So it started around when I was 15 years old, when I was in high school, around my freshman year. And I was introduced to the religion through a schoolmate of mine. I would always frequent the school library, during my lunch period. I would avoid the school cafeteria because I preferred to be in a less crowded and quiet space. So I would always frequent the school library, and I would always find him there. And I remember seeing him one day reading his Bible, and I just thought that was very interesting. And he just seemed like a very mature young man, and he seemed like he was so much different from all of the other kids, and it really I really took an interest in him. And I observed him for a few weeks before I actually decided to approach him. And I decided to approach him one day, and I asked him a question about the Bible. And him, of course, being one of Jehovah's Witnesses, he took that opportunity to, what they would say, witness to me.
Yeah.
And after we got into that conversation, he then asked me if I wanted to have a regular study of the Bible. And me being the person that I was, I was interested in things like philosophy and religion and history, things related to the humanities. So I was interested in it, and so I decided to take him up on his offer. And the next time we met, he brought for me my own personal copy of the Bible, along with this brochure called "What Does God Require of Us?" And that's what I started my Bible study out of. And we went over what JW's referred to as the basic Bible teachings, God's name, who's the ruler of the world, and things of that nature. And I think at that time, I was just very pessimistic about the world, at that age. And, I just felt like, something was wrong. And, these were my personal feelings even before I started the study. I just felt like, as a society, we were morally decaying. And so, when we got into teachings like the last days, I readily accepted those teachings because I felt like it explained, my own perception of the world at that time. And I just thought it was, reasonable, and I just thought it was logical. And, after we completed the What Does God Require of Us brochure, we then moved on to the What Does the Bible Really Teach book. And I studied, the Bible with Jehovah's Witnesses for about a good 5 years before I actually decided to get baptized. My study was even passed off from that young man to an elder in the congregation that I attended, after he graduated from school, because during the school breaks, over the summer, we would have my Bible studies over the phone.
Mm-hmm.
And, I think a couple of years after I started the, Bible study with him, I began attending the Kingdom Hall, which was right across the street from where I lived. So, me being at a young age, it was always easy for me to just go, even if I didn't have the support of my family. And so, I started attending the Kingdom Hall, and then, I started studying out of the Bible Teach publication with an elder in that hall. And even, with studying, there were things that I was convinced of, but there were some things that I was still not convinced of. But, as time went on, you're made to feel ashamed, for not being a baptized member of the congregation, after having studied for that period of time, because, I'm sure you guys are aware that, they see 5 years as being an unusually long period of time to be studying the Bible. You need to study for at least maybe 6 months to a year. And then after that, you need to be baptized, because then the question in their mind is like, what's holding you back? And I've even had people come out and, explicitly say that to me. And, so I just decided to put my doubts to the side and, go ahead and get baptized. And I did. And that's how I, got involved with Jehovah's Witnesses.
So how did your family feel about you studying with Jehovah's Witnesses?
My family was not very happy about it, particularly my grandmother, who really did not care for Jehovah's Witnesses. But I don't think it's Jehovah's Witnesses in particular that she didn't care for. She really didn't seem to care for any religious people. I remember growing up, she would always tell me that the real devils are in church. And I think to some extent, she was right about that. As far as, my mother, my sister, my brother, they didn't really they seemed apathetic toward it. They didn't, explicitly encourage me, and they also didn't, discourage me. But they were just on the sidelines with that. It was really my grandmother who really didn't care for it.
What did you find about the Kingdom Hall that really got you over the threshold to get baptized? What were some of the things that was happening to you at the Kingdom Hall?
Well, when I first started attending the Kingdom Hall, people were very, very nice to me. People would come up to me, introduce themselves, hug me, embrace me, say all of these good things, and maybe, feel really good about myself and feel good about the fact that I was, studying the Bible. But, as time went on, slowly that sort of treatment began to disappear. I started to see things in the congregation that I really did not care for, like the preferential treatment that was given to certain individuals with certain positions in the congregation. And, I was told at the very beginning that, Jehovah's Witnesses were supposed to be different in that regard, that nobody was supposed to be divided, based on their occupation or their position or their status in the congregation, that was something that the false religions of the world, as they see it, engaged in, or, that's something that, other religious organizations did. I was taught that, Jehovah's Witnesses didn't do that. But as time went on, I began to see the prejudicial practices and the discriminatory practices, how when the circuit overseer came to visit and, he would go to a particular person's home, for lunch, how often the elders and their wives were invited, but those who really needed the encouragement, those ones at the bottom, were never invited. And, it just seemed very wrong to me. It seemed like, there were, Jehovah's Witnesses as a whole are a clique, but there seemed to be cliques within that clique. And, that's something that really turned me off. And I said that this is not right. It didn't sit well with my perception of what a Christian should be.
Right.
Yep.
So I know when we had talked before, you had given us 3 reasons that brought you in and 3 reasons that, got you to leave. So give us the top 3 reasons why you became one of Jehovah's Witnesses.
The top 3 reasons, as I said, when we got to the teaching regarding the last days, my perception at the time of the world was that, we were, as a society, we were morally decaying. And they taught me about, the signs of the last days, how children would be disobedient to their parents and how it would be all of this stuff going on in the world. And that explanation seemed to coincide with my own perception of the world at the time. And I said, well, this is why all of this stuff is going on. So it makes sense to me. Before becoming a JW, I grew up as a Baptist. So, the belief in the Bible was already there. Belief in God was already there. So all they had to do was work from that point on. And they seemed to offer very specific answers to very specific questions. And that's something that really, intrigued me. The teaching about 1914 and things of that nature. And also, the way I was treated at the Kingdom Hall, looking at the multicultural composition of the congregation, that's something that really amazed me, because that's not something I saw in many churches that I visited when I was coming up. A lot of the churches that I visited coming up, they were ethnically concentrated with one group of people. And you didn't see a wide variety of people from different ethnic and cultural backgrounds. So that's something that really amazed me with the congregation that I attended. People seem to get along well. People seem to treat each other equally. And again, this goes back to when I first started attending, when I saw those things. Just the person that I studied the Bible with. He was a young man. He was very mature. He was very intelligent. I would say hands down, he was like the smartest kid in our school. And even when he graduated from high school, he didn't go off to college. He actually went off to Bethel to serve there. And he was so smart and brilliant that a lot of the teachers were amazed that he chose not to go off to college. They were even talking about him a year and 2 years after he left. They were like, we don't understand why he would not choose to go to college, Straight A student, very brilliant, hard worker. So, all of that stuff really amazed me. And I just feel like those are some of the things that really got me in.
Yeah, your experiences is very interesting, because it's that pattern. They look at, like you mentioned, especially the signs of the times. And unfortunately, they've been telling people that same thing for like 140 years. It's funny, if they had met you in 1912, they would tell you exactly the same thing. And so what we have learned over the years is that what the Watchtower identified as signs that the end was going to take place real soon, the passing of time has shown that that wasn't the case at all. Basically, they misread the signs, because if what they said was true, then the end of the world had already come, but they didn't know. And, so at that point, then the excuse making comes in. And as witnesses, we just accepted the excuses. But yeah, that's very interesting. The account about the young man, that is such a set. Let me ask you just a quick question. What was the ethnic background of this young man that turned down college?
He was an African American, just like myself.
Yeah, and
I think that's another reason why we made such a good connection.
Yeah, and it's interesting that you mentioned how the school administrators, the teachers, the guidance counselors, how they were just taken aback, and that story that you related, so many of us have. That was the same thing. I think of myself. Right after high school, I pioneered for a few months and went straight to Bethel, and the same thing. The teachers and the guidance, they just couldn't believe it. You was taking all college prep classes, and then you're gonna not go to college. And so we know that at conventions, such young people are paraded across the platform, and they're celebrated for turning down college. And so fast forward 10, 20, 30, 40 years in the future, we talk to those same folks, and it's like, I really should have went on to college, So it's like witnesses don't believe that you can walk and chew gum at the same time. That's kind of unfortunate.
Right.
And see, they got you at a vulnerable stage because, what was your life like before? Like when you were in school, did you mentioned that you didn't want to hang around a lot of people, so you went to the library. So were you just kind of a shy person?
Yes, at that time, I think I was a shy person. I was timid. I stayed to myself. I wouldn't have considered myself a popular person at the time. I didn't have many, friends or associates in school. I didn't really have a real connection with anybody. So, yes, I think they caught me at a emotionally vulnerable time in my life. And being at that stage, being 15 years of age, that's only natural. You're an adolescent and you're going through the developmental stage. Mm-hmm. And in retrospect, when I think back to the stuff that I had to, be subjected to, the psychological and emotional manipulation, I was much too young for that, much too young.
Yeah. What are some of the things after you got baptized that started to shake your foundation with this religion?
Again, it started out with the behavior that I observed from certain individuals in the congregation. After I got baptized, as I'm sure you guys already know, when you're a male and after you're baptized, they're going to immediately put you to work. And put me to work they did. I started working with the sound team in my congregation, holding the microphones, taking them up and down the aisle, passing them out to people who wanted to make comments and things of that nature. And, they didn't take the time to teach me or even train me on how to do some of these things. I was just put into that position and said, here, do this. And, after a while, they started getting very frustrating because you saw the disorganization and you saw the drama and the controversy that resulted as a result of that disorganization. And it didn't meet with the perception that I had of the organization when I was having my Bible study. And I saw all of these things happening, and, it started to awaken me and break me out of this idea that this organization is perfect and that everything inside this organization is going to go well and everybody inside this organization is going to treat you well. I saw, different. And, as I said earlier, I saw the favoritism. I saw the nepotism, the cliques that form, whether it was among the pioneers or whether it was among the elders or the elders' wives and things of that nature. And when I was actually in the process of doing my objective research about the history of the organization and their earlier teachings, I just got into a very serious matter with another brother in the congregation who suffered from a mental health disorder. It was borderline personality disorder, I believe it was. And he began sending out emails, not only to myself, but to another brother in the congregation, as well as to an elder, accusatory emails, as well as very threatening emails. And this other brother and I thought that it would be best if we took the matter to the elders so that they can see these things that he's been sending us. And so we took the situation to the elders, and they met with the brother with this mental health disorder. We don't know what took place in that meeting because we weren't there and they didn't come back and tell us anything. They keep all of that stuff confidential. And they spoke with me separately and they spoke with this other brother separately. And when I was in that meeting with these elders, I'm the victim in this case. And yet and still I was made to feel like I had done something wrong. The information that was given to me didn't seem like my safety and security didn't seem to be of importance. The nature of the meeting didn't even seem to be about the issue at all. It was like they gave me information that they felt would be of benefit to me, things that they felt that I could improve on. And I'm like, where is this coming from? What does this have to do with the matter at hand? And, it just goes to show how these individuals are not prepared to handle these sort of matters. They're not prepared and trained to handle these sorts of situations. And, I had already been online reading about the different cases that have been going on and how the elders have handled these situations. And so now going through this experience myself, I said to myself, well, this is the way they do handle these situations. This is not right. So here I have actual confirmation. I have confirmation for the many stories that I read online about how these elders handle situations, and they handled the situation exactly the way these people said they handled them.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
That's so sad.
Wow. That's amazing. So
yes, and this other brother, he felt like he wanted to contact the police, and because of the threatening emails. And one of the elders told him that doing so would bring notoriety to the congregation. So here we go sweeping some dirty laundry under the rug so that we don't make Jehovah's name unclean.
Can't damage the brand, man.
Yes.
Can't damage the brand.
So then what happened after that?
So after that, that really gave me my reason to leave. Prior to that, I had already been online doing my objective research about the organization, and I was uncovering many things. And so, as you guys know, it's a very controlling religion, and it's not easy to leave at all. So I had to come up with some sort of a reason for me to leave without being branded or labeled as an apostate. I had to come up with some sort of a plan or a plot. So, of course, I was not happy about the situation, but I was happy that he sort of gave me a way out. So, after that, I just stopped attending meetings because of the things that I uncovered, the things that I discovered about the organization online, as well as for my safety and security. I stopped attending those meetings. And, it's been about 3-4 years since I've been to the Kingdom Hall.
Has anybody come looking for you?
In the beginning, some, sisters came by looking for me, trying to get me to come back. There was another time where another sister and a brother came by because one of the sisters, she said she wanted to see me. And that was pretty much it. But the elders, they never came by.
Wow. Yeah. Your experience is a very common one. And sometimes when people will hear our videos, they will clearly misunderstand completely what we're saying. I personally did a video about why my wife and I left. And what I stated was that there were 3 things that caused us to pause, take a serious look, and reconsider a lot of the things that we were involved in. And there was just a number of people, and generally these are Jehovah's Witnesses, sincere, good-natured people, mean well. And they would say, you left the organization for 3 reasons, 3 things. And what they have missed, and this is the point that you just made, they have missed that, no, these are not the only 3 things that caused me to leave. These are the 3 things that started me on the journey. And the journey is taking the time to investigate seriously and critically what we had been taught. In other words, this is the crack in the dike. This is the crack in the foundation. This is where it started. And like you mentioned yourself, you already done been reading. You already done been doing your research. And so this is just simply, as people often say, this was just the straw that broke the camel's back. And that's basically what it is. But as you mentioned, these are 3 things that stand out that basically started you on your journey, or just help you to conclude your journey on simply leaving this organization and recognizing what it was about. And like you said, you almost have to make a plan to get out, because it's like you are escaping from Alcatraz because they're coming after you many times. And so that's the thing.
Well, it's interesting now, Shakeem, because, as we talked about in the start of this video, that you don't have any other people in your family that are Jehovah's Witnesses. So help our audience to appreciate that it doesn't make a difference that you're the only witness, and the difficulty that you had leaving and getting back into normal society.
Yes, because when you're in the religion, you are not allowed to have friends who are outside of that organization.
Yes.
So all of the friends that you make are Jehovah's Witnesses. So, as you guys are aware of their shunning policy, that when a person leaves this organization, anybody who is still in that organization is not allowed to associate with you in any way, shape, or form whatsoever.
Yep.
Not through email, not through text message, not through Skype, not through Zoom as we are. They're not allowed to talk to you or communicate with you in any form whatsoever. So when you leave this organization, even if your family members are not in that organization, you essentially lose all of your friends, because all of your friends were Jehovah's Witnesses. And that can have a very devastating effect, even if your family members are not in that religion.
Mm-hmm.
Excellent point.
Yep. So it just goes to show that it doesn't take long to be indoctrinated. It doesn't take a long time to, mess up someone's psyche, as it were. And make
they are experts at the psychological manipulative tactics.
Yeah. How are you doing now?
As of now, I'm doing much better than I was before, when I recently left, I'm now, I returned to school, I'm a junior in college now. I'm a social work major. I'll be a senior next year. I'll be graduating with my BA in social work in May of 2019. So I'm doing great.
Excellent.
Yeah.
How has your skills come in terms of being shy? Have you overcome your shyness?
Yes, I think I've overcome my shyness. I've become much more social. I'm a lot more involved with organizations on campus. I'm a lot more involved with, other people. I've made new friends. I'm associating with other people. And so my social skills have definitely improved in that regard.
Would you say it is a fallacy that the Watchtower teaches that if you no longer are a part of them, your life just goes completely down? In other words, witnesses are taught, we all were taught, and we taught other people that there's no life that you can have outside of Watchtower world. In other words, if you're not in Wally world, you can't have anything. You ain't gonna be happy. Your life's gonna be down in the toilet and that kind of stuff. Would you say that's a fallacy, and that is used to keep so many Jehovah's Witnesses trapped inside?
It is most definitely a fallacy, and it is another fear tactic that they use to keep members inside their religion. They'll teach them things like there's a possibility that you'll be possessed by demons.
Oh, yeah.
Or they'll teach them things that, they see things in terms of black and white. Either you're with us or you're against us. Yep. Either you're good or you're bad. Mm-hmm. Either you're holy or you're unholy. Either you're righteous or you're unrighteous. Mm-hmm. And if you're inside of the organization, you're all of those good things. If you're outside of the organization, you're all of those bad things. There is no middle ground with them. There's no gray area with them. So it is most certainly a fallacy. It is another fear tactic that they employ to keep members under their firm control.
Mm-hmm. And it's unfortunate. It's very effective. We've seen that, and it's simply an amazing observation that you can really take now that you've left. Mm-hmm. As you look back and you see all the people who they often live in fear. And that was the whole thing about when we did about the fog, fear, obligation, and guilt. They got it down to a science.
Mm-hmm. Now, looking back on your life, what would you have done differently? Given the information that you have about this religion.
I wish I would have got online and done the objective research about the history of that organization before I got into that Bible study with them.
Yes.
Because for me at that time, it was all about learning about the Bible. But, that's all good and fine, but it's so important to learn about the history of the organization that you're going to be associating with. And had I done that history, I think I would never have become a baptized member of that organization had I done my objective study about the history and the earlier teachings of that organization. This is why I think it's so important for schools to teach critical thinking skills. As your YouTube channel is dedicated to critical thinking, it's so important for schools and educational institutions to teach people how to think critically. Yes. Because I think if I were taught that, at that age, even though I was 15 at the time, I could have identified many of the fallacies in their teachings, and I could have been able to avoid going through that very devastating experience in my life.
Yeah. You would have picked up on the techniques that are used to manipulate people. You would have picked it up. And that's why we often say that, interestingly, in the year 2018, there is no excuse to be ignorant about Jehovah's Witnesses. Anyone who is
absolutely no excuse.
Anyone who is ignorant of Jehovah's Witnesses, it is by choice. People will go on to Yelp. They'll Google this. They'll Google that. They want to find something about a pair of tennis shoes, and yet they won't take the time to find something about a religion that tells them you will die if you don't accept our little published pamphlets. And so today, if you want to be, I tell you, there are people, they want to remain ignorant. That's fine, but there's really no excuse. You can find out the good, the bad, and the ugly. And then as a consumer, because we're all consumers, we're consumers of products, services, and ideas. At that point, as old Cy Sims used to say that ran the clothing store, an educated consumer is the best customer. And that's really the bottom line. You want to be an educated consumer.
Definitely.
Yeah. And the other thing that I feel is Jehovah's Witnesses, everyone is fair game with them. My uncle is in a assisted living, and they're over there doing Bible studies. They're in the school systems with the children looking for people like yourself. They're all over the place looking for people. We have a friend that they even recruited his wife years ago out of a mental institution. And when we lived in Alexandria, Virginia, they were over in the jails, having Bible studies with people in jail. So people have to be, very cautious to realize that the Jehovah's Witnesses are everywhere looking for recruits.
Yes, they are.
Mhm.
Yeah. We were very proud to say, we're not looking for everybody. We're looking for people who are moaning and groaning over the testable thing. Well, you need to understand what that means. That means we're looking for vulnerable people. We're looking for folks who got problems. And of course, we got the answer in our bag. And so that is why people are often caught when they're in vulnerable states in their life. And that's the kind of people Jehovah's Witnesses look for, because they're easy candidates. You having problems, things going bad. Somebody tells you I got the answer. Come over here. You're gonna ride with them. You rolling, and that's what they use as one of their best techniques. Find people who are struggling. That's why, to be honest with you, that's why we do so well. In the inner cities where people many times may live in the project. I remember you used to clean your bag out. Because you think about you showing somebody living in the ghetto a picture of Fiji and Hawaii, and you ask that magic question: would you like to live here, you and your kids? Everybody's gonna say yeah. So I mean, it's not rocket science.
Yes.
In New York, go up to Westchester County and try that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
But yes, we appreciate you telling your story, and we hope that our viewing audience, we always look at it from the perspective of lurkers, because a lot of people that are on the internet are not just people that have left, but these are people that still going to the Kingdom Hall, and they're watching our videos, and we know that because we're receiving messages on our YouTube channel from those individuals. So for those of you who are listening, youngsters, teenagers, whatever, like you're at the age you were, understand that if you see something that ain't right, it probably isn't.
Be willing to at least.
Right, exactly.
That's the whole point. See, it's the fact, the focus is, don't let someone shut you down when you're simply just asking questions. Don't let nobody do that to you. Those days are over, that they're over with. The Watchtower got away for 100-some years by telling people you don't love God if you question our pamphlet. People are not buying that no more. They're not buying that no more.
Right.
Exactly. And if they are shutting you down, if you're asking questions, then that is definitely a red flag that you might be in a cult.
Red flag all the way.
That's right. All right, so we're going to go ahead and end right here. But anyway, this has been Lady C.
This has been JT.
And we want to thank Shakeem for being on our program.
Yes, thank you so much. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Take care.
Ow!